Now, on Enough Said, with KFAN Radio's Dan Barrero, attorney and HoldingCourtPodcast.com's Ron Rosenbaum.
On a daily basis, I am worried that customers are missing their flights. Not very many, but it is creating more anxiety for the travel experience. So none of that can be denied.
Welcome to another edition of Enough Said. I'm Dan Barrero, joined as always by Justin Gard. Good to have you back, sir. And Lori Fisher in the control room riding herd over this production. Hi, Lori.
Hi, guys. Terror attacks at airports, in the skies, TSA struggling to get people through in a timely manner, technical problems here and overseas. We just can't win at the airport, or can we? Dan?
We can win at the airport.
How?
And it's real simple, and I'm glad we played that soundbite off the top, because the biggest problem I have with all this discussion is when the airlines themselves whine about the lines their poor passengers are subjected to. They can fix this in one fell swoop. And you know what it is.
I do.
Well, you know what it is.
I do.
End the baggage fee nonsense, and people will stop attempting. There was a time when a carry-on looked like a carry-on.
It did.
Now it's a steamer trunk. And then you got to squeeze it into the overhead where there's not enough room. And obviously, all that extra luggage slows down what is already a difficult process for other reasons we'll get into. Now, I know they're not going to do it, but I can't listen to their whining, because they created this to a certain degree. They got used to the revenue, and now they're trying to say, hey, fix this for us. You can fix it if you have the guts to do it, and they don't.
And why did they fix it the wrong way on the first point? Why did they do the bag fees? Because gas prices used to be double what they were now, right? So they were trying.
Triple, yeah.
It was easy for the consumer to say, well, they're trying to keep our costs down. I can pack a little bit easier.
Post 9/11, everybody understood.
Exactly. And they're trying to make money. We understand that. We'd like to have the different airlines. We'd rather not have all these mergers. Well, now gas prices are great, right? We love gas prices.
Correct.
They're all about $2, yet all those fees are still there. And you're right. It is funny to watch people. I know you don't think it's funny, because it's not just the steamer trunk. You probably have then the personal item.
Absolutely.
Then you have the backpack. Then you have the magazines. And it takes forever. I love the rhetoric, though, from the people at the airport. When you say cautiously optimistic, that's a good thing. What are they saying? Confidently apprehensive about how it's going to go this summer. Confidently apprehensive about how summer travel is going to go. I just love it.
There's an I hate the wait hashtag. Everything's got to have a hashtag, and apparently that's it if you're stuck in this nonsense. And there is a serious side to this we have to get to.
Yes.
And obviously we've got security issues, and we've got warnings in the wake of the Egyptian airplane that went down. We don't know what it was, but there are lots of suspicions already, okay? So we understand that we're already hearing things from people here saying they're worried about how safe the situation is in our country. So the sad part is, it seems like we have right now, in the minds of a lot of these security experts, the worst of both worlds, in that the lines are longer than ever, and there doesn't seem to be all that much confidence that the security is that much better. I think people could live with that the new reality might be it's going to be longer if we're really going to do a thorough job and we're going to try to put all these bags on a plane. But there's no feeling that indeed we're getting better security, and that's got to be where the rubber meets the road on this.
And that's what we always tell ourselves when we're in that line. We're in this line for a reason.
Yeah.
We want to feel safe up there. And right now, we're not. Now, I don't know about the privatization of it. That's the big comeback, is take it away from the TSA.
Some airports have started doing that.
And they're saying, I worry about that for
too.
some reason, because what are the standards? Who's doing background checks? Is it easier to infiltrate, private companies as opposed to a government organization? That concerns me a little bit.
How about this idea?
After this, we got to move on.
At some airports, they're now bringing performers. There are therapy ponies being brought to airports. It may, as ridiculous as it is, that's what it's come to.
We should all apologize to Richard Pitino.
How so?
Okay,
He's the smart guy.
We can't go there.
Fly private.
Not enough time. We have to move on.
Fly private.
We have to talk about Bernie Sanders. He's still holding on, despite being hundreds of delegates behind Hillary Clinton. He is staying positive. Let's take a listen.
By the way, I should tell you that there are a lot of people out there, many of the pundits and politicians, they say Bernie Sanders should drop out. Well, let me be as clear as I can be. I agree with you. We are in to the last ballot is cast.
He said it. He is winning primaries, but should he keep going since it is tough to win the nomination? Dan.
Well, first of all, I'm shocked that the crowd behind him thinks he shouldn't drop out. His own crowd.
Exactly.
Amazing. Because If they'd have said drop out, he might have.
We'll do a quick poll. Who thinks I should drop out?
Exactly. Now, let me throw this out at the Bernie Sanders people and to Bernie himself. There are no participation trophies in politics. Somebody needs to tell him that. It's been a great grassroots movement. We're happy for him. He's brought some stuff to the forefront. But the issue for me isn't he can keep going if he wants. He ain't going to win, I don't think, but he can keep going. That's not the problem. The problem now is, if you check what happened in Nevada, his folks got bitter. His folks basically tried to game the system, failed, and now they're acting like they got basically screwed, and they don't like that feeling. And it's like, and once they didn't like it, what did they do? They started, it was like a wrestling crowd. They started throwing stuff. And meanwhile, Bernie doesn't really do anything to sort of say, calm down. If Trump is in that position, he gets bludgeoned if he doesn't full and center say, stop the nonsense. And that, to me, is where Bernie Sanders is making himself look like a fool.
Well, Trump would get bludgeoned, but then his popularity would go up as well.
True.
It wouldn't affect him, as we've talked about a million times. I think he should just stay as long as he wants. I am a participation trophy guy. When it comes to this, it's got to look at the people that were cheering for him. Don't you think it's the most intoxicating thing in the world?
Well, it's gotta
People
be.
are giving him money. They're funding him. They're cheering him wherever he goes. He's an older guy. This is probably his last big run. I'm all for it. Now, he's killing the party. He's hurting the party. And all of a sudden now Trump has this, what's the word, the race to unite his side a lot quicker than the Democrats. And we know that the Democrats
roles are reversed.
Exactly. I mean, the Republicans now are way ahead of this thing in terms of uniting. Now, they can make up for it, but they're still divided right now.
Bernie's problem for me is a little bit like Trump's in that he's forceful. He likes to rip a lot of people, but the devil's in the details. There's no meat on the bones. What is your plan beyond your outrage about the system, which a lot of people rage against, including Trump? And I don't think he really has one. There's not one, at least, that's going to make any sense to pay for. It doesn't add up.
Free college?
Even people on his side don't think it adds up. And so, to me, keep going, because maybe Hillary ends up being indicted. I think that's unlikely, but maybe deep down that's what he's thinking about. But don't pretend that you've been, like I said, gamed by the system, and don't have your own participants act like they did in Nevada, because that was embarrassing.
Okay, we have to leave it there. We have to move on. Next up, we've talked about this before. Coaches quitting over unruly parents. But a Star Tribune article this week dives deeper into the social media aspect. When I played sports back in the day, and when I say played, loosely played, parents were upset. They would yell. They would, say something to the person next to them. But now you have Facebook and Twitter and people jumping in and getting all fired up. Dan?
Yeah, well, that's the difference. Lori's nailed it pretty nicely, is that I'm not necessarily convinced that all parents are, that there are that many more parents that are insane now compared to 30 or 40 years ago when it comes to how emotional they get about their own kids. But now, if you mutter something, it's two people next to you.
Yep.
Or then,
Back
I should
then.
say. Now, it's the obvious. It's all over Twitter. I would give this advice to the coaches, though, and it's easy for me to say. But I would give them the Chuck Daly advice. And I know they don't make as much money as the former Detroit Pistons world champion coach did, but Chuck basically, they'd say to Chuck, what's the secret to your success?
The secret sauce.
Exactly, and one of your favorite terms. And he said, the secret is ignore a lot of the noise. He meant from his own players. He may not have meant parents there, but people, they had entourages. And he said, that's what you got to do, because a lot of people, what they end up doing is try to engage all of it or fight back on all of it. Twitter ain't going away.
It's not.
Facebook ain't going away. And so to a certain extent, if you're going to coach, not saying you love it, but you got to know when to just ignore it and not engage it, because I think the more you engage it, sometimes the worse it's likely to get.
They call that feeding the trolls. I know you don't like that phrase,
True.
but feeding that, once you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile.
Yeah.
Crazy parents are going to do that. Chuck Daly probably had something that a lot of these coaches don't have, though. Strong backing from his boss, right? Strong backing from, and a couple of rings.
Contracts.
A lot of money,
Right.
and so he could lose it. But it always goes back to administrators. We've talked about this.
Yep.
Coaches that have to worry about social media are probably worried because, is my boss reading this? Is the AD reading this? Not just that they're reading it, because ADs hear everything as well, but are they influenced by it? Will they have the conviction to say, no, this person knows how they're running the program. I'm not going to let some crazy parents influence my view of how this program is being run, how the games are going, how practices are going.
You're right.
That's why coaches get paranoid, because a lot of times they don't have support from
It's
above
a great
them.
point. And another thing, and you and I have talked about this before, that another key would be if you have a couple of parents on a team who basically try to set a different tone or fire back on that themselves.
It's huge.
Maybe it becomes a little easier for other parents to say, listen to ourselves. We're acting like children, and we're not the.
Coming up on Enough Said.
When I grew up playing sports, you got back at people by winning
State tennis champion.
and kicking their you-know-what.
Right.
You didn't worry about other messages
Well,
or anything like that. You worried about...
Tell you one thing, Rublev didn't waste any time getting a few swings in on Bautista either. Bautista might be hurt.
Well, there you have it. Welcome back to Enough Said. The big brawl on Sunday. Texas Rangers second baseman Rougned Odor suspended for 8 games and fined $5,000. And then Jose Bautista with the Toronto Blue Jays gets a 1-game suspension. Was this a fair punishment, Justin?
A fair punishment? I think
For
anybody...
either one?
Well, I think anybody that goes by the code, I think if I was the commissioner, I would say you're done for the rest of the year.
The year?
Just because I'm so sick of the code. Especially in this case, where with Bautista, he has the home run, last October, right? That was the postseason.
How many months ago was that?
6,
9,
7, 8. It was last season. It had no impact on this season. They wait. The Rangers lie in the weeds.
They lurk.
They play 6 other times, and it's not until the last at bat of the 7th game that they say, now we're going to send our message. It's ridiculous.
Did it not get through?
I guess.
Was the message not delivered?
The message was delivered. He took the punch into the face. That definitely hurt. But it never stops.
Yeah.
The code never stops. That's my problem with the code. We're always trying to one-up people. We're always trying to get back at somebody.
Right.
When I grew up, to paraphrase Lori, when I grew up playing sports, you got back at people by winning.
State tennis champion.
And kicking their you-know-what.
Right.
You didn't worry about other messages or
here's
anything like that. You worried about winning the game.
And I think you hit on the key part of this. A lot of people, when there are fights, they want games shut down and they start ripping the whole concept of what do we do? What kind of example are we setting for the kids? It's not necessarily that I'm bothered by things occasionally breaking out. It's the stupidity, as you say, of why it broke out. That you wait this long, then you have a pitcher who wasn't even on your team last year when all this nonsense went down. When you know what Bautista's crime was to hit a dramatic game-winning home run in the postseason and then flip his bat, which I'm
you hate.
bored with.
You're bored
but I
with.
don't think it's any. It was a hell of a hit, is what it was. And as you say, baseball is the only sport. And this is why it's the stupidest sport that is burdened by, or almost seems to want to love, this sort of ongoing, no. The larger message must be sent. And in this case, the larger message is we lose one of our players for, was it 8-game suspension on Odor? 8 games, which makes absolutely no sense to me as well. But in the baseball parlance, that was worth it. That's great. That's wonderful.
We hear from hockey, too, though. I mean, hockey's the other sport that does the code. We've talked about the fighting.
Right.
You've got the goons out there, and you got to send a message. It's all about the message. Sometimes it happens before the puck is even dropped. All of the contrived stuff, to me, takes away from what you're there for to do, competition.
Justin,
compete,
do you ever
play the
send
game.
a message in tennis?
If we called
Did
it
you ever
fleshing.
brawl?
We called it fleshing. You could, you tag somebody, you
Right.
hit them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you try to do it on purpose. Other times you don't. But
A little more subtle, you're saying.
And the
than
balls
this.
don't hurt as much. I mean, they're felt. They're really not going to hurt. We're not really tough guys on the tennis court. No. If that was your question, Lori, no. We're not super tough guys. We're not fake thugs, as Kevin Garnett once said.
That's
Good to hear.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's stay on the Blue Jays, though. They're taking on the Twins at Target Field this weekend. Have the Twins hit an all-time low, Dan?
Didn't we do this last week?
Or the week before?
And
I think the week before.
The year before, other than this
New
last
low?
year. Well, speaking of stupidity, this is the box the Twins have put themselves in, basically, if you watch them. They are either incredibly inept or incredibly stupid. And when they're not one, they're the other. And
No way to
last
go through
night,
life.
They were incredibly stupid, where your guy Santana had a great game and already stolen a couple of bases, thinks he's found the pitcher napping again. At this point, the Twins are down 1 in extras. They need this run. Well, they got wise to it, did the Jays. And they indeed, basically, it was an easy throw. The pitcher, goes off the rubber and ends up throwing to second base.
Easy
They
tag.
get that run. So they are. I still maintain they become must see at now. They're 20 or 21 games out or under 500, depending on what happens tonight. And they have become so bad. They are now once again for me good to watch. Because which is it going to be on a given night? Is it going to be incredibly inept, which their hitting is for sure, including now Joe Mauer, or incredibly stupid? And if you're really lucky, you hit the jackpot, and they're stupid and inept on the same night.
And that's been the case this week, right? It was the
Yes.
case on the road. It's the case now that they're home. And I don't know, where will the bottom fall? Because everybody says, we've talked about this now
I
for a
think
month.
the starting pitching can get worse. I really do.
The starting pitching?
I think it can get worse.
Can the bullpen get worse?
Bullpen can't get
Base
much
running,
worse, I don't think.
Fielding. They actually played good
the hitting
defense
would be
a little
hard
bit.
for it to get much worse.
That's the thing, but I don't know what you do. And they don't have the igniter. They don't have somebody like Phil Hughes the other day. What do you mean?
Joe Mauer.
You look puzzled. Well, in April, he was igniting.
A.K.A. the igniter.
Is that what we call him?
Off the field.
I didn't realize that was his nickname.
Yeah.
But like Phil Hughes the other night, we talked a lot about this. You know, they need a good pitching performance. They need a victory. He's on his way to handing them that at 75 pitches.
Correct.
And he takes himself out rather than, Rome is burning, and you have a pitcher going, I don't know. I'd rather just hand it off to a bullpen that's been shaky at best, awful at worst. Imagine
he seemed relieved.
Exactly.
He seemed relieved that he got any. I think he thought he was doing it for the team, but it's like, well, no, you are the team at this point, and you are the team's best shot at this point.
Take the ball for another inning, maybe get a victory, and who knows? Maybe you win 2-3 games.
I don't want to hear anymore, and I've already heard it again. Terry Ryan's willing to take the heat. That doesn't mean anything anymore. It's cool to say. He's said it before, but at some point, this is, if it hasn't already, has reached a point where it doesn't matter whether Terry Ryan's willing to take the heat or not. They got to blow this thing up.
What do we do
I
with
really
Mullin?
believe that. Not this moment, but I think at the end of this season, you have to break up. The Timberwolves.
Coming up on Enough Said.
Ordinarily, I'm the guy who says, don't get defensive.
You are.
Calm down. We are flyover country. On this one, I say, so you're really excited because on Mike and Mike, they got John Sally as a guest host. Former big man, NBA, had one ring, maybe two, but had a nice career. And the subject is they're going to ask John Sally about our guy, Karl Anthony Towns.
Doesn't happen very often.
Unanimous Rookie of the Year, and you're feeling like, we get ripped here, our sports teams a lot, but boy, he's got to compliment John. This is our guy. He's good. What wonderful things is he going to say about him? And John Sally does kind of compliment him, says he might be the future of the league, but he said the only way he's the future of the league is how. He has to leave Minnesota. In fact, Wiggins needs to get out of Minnesota as well. He turns it into the age-old issue of nobody's going to care about a superstar player like Karl Anthony Towns is going to become, or Wiggins for that matter, if they're stuck in that hellhole known as Minneapolis-St. Paul. And ordinarily, I'm the guy who says, don't get defensive. Calm down. We are flyover country. On this one, I say hammer away at John Sally for saying something so incredibly out of date and stupid, it's not even funny. Because as you know, the world has changed a little bit. Look at the Final Four in the NBA right now. Some of the best teams play in flyover country. The league is thriving. So the notion that he can't be successful here is outdated at best. And so I say, I'm not calling for John Sally's head or anything, but on Twitter, fire away at him. Pitchforks, go after him.
You've taken this a lot harder than me, and I'm the Minnesotan out of us. At some point, don't we just say it's John Sally? Why are we letting John Sally dictate how we feel about anything?
He's a very, very popular, acerbic
He was in the 90s
Yeah.
when he had the TV show, and he had a good
I think
career.
he's still on somewhere.
He's on somewhere, but
Yeah.
nobody knows. John,
Yeah.
we should not care what John. There are some people where you value their opinion.
Right, sure.
In this case, you say he obviously hasn't been here in 25 years. Maybe he doesn't want to deal with the airport lines.
He calls it, instead of the Skyways, the tubes.
The tubes.
Which is, was anybody ever really call it the tubes?
No,
I
and
didn't
it's the
think so.
greatest skyway system ever.
And
we know that.
You can even cycle on it.
You can do whatever you want.
exactly
They've got
right.
the cycling lanes. So
beautiful.
John Sally, we don't need to worry about it. It was a firestorm. People went crazy
went
about
nuts.
it. You in particular,
went
I
nuts.
was shocked.
Well, I'm trying to become more and more like one of us. But it just seems so bizarre.
It's dated,
And given-
uneducated,
you give
and
him,
stupid.
That show's a popular show. So to give him that kind of forum, it made no sense. And
Probably his last time. Green
as
didn't
of-
like
We
it.
have to leave it there.
Okay.
We have to move on to the lightning round. Let's go. We talk a lot about sports teams in the toilet, but what about giving some love to the Lynx? They kicked off their season earlier this month. Dan.
Yeah, they are. We talk about them a lot on our show, and some people get bothered by us talking about them. We believe in rewarding excellence, and this is the quintessential excellent franchise right now. They've got great talent. They've got great moxie. You want the local angle. You don't get any more local and legendary than Lindsay Whalen. You got a Popovich-like coach in terms of her approach. In Cheryl Reeve, that's a coach and she won't mind that compliment, even though it's a man, because she has great respect for him as well. And they have probably a good chance at a couple more runs. They play the kind of basketball that people say they clamor for. It's good team ball. The ball moves. and then they win. And we don't really have a hell of a lot of that right now.
Best coach, best point guard, best player, Maya Moore, and
Absolutely.
the culture. And
Hey,
the culture.
next up, former Vikings coach Bud Grant hosts his 11th annual yard sale. That's always fun to go to. You know that what they say, one person's junk is another treasure. He's also charging for autographs, $25 a pop. Justin.
How does that compare to what you charge for autographs at the State Fair? It's bring your own item. It's free.
He's got me thinking, because I don't think I've ever charged. Maybe I need to start.
How long?
How high could I go? 10? I don't know.
Let's start at 5, and then
$2,
see. You got to create the demand before that. But 11 garage sales is incredible to me. How much stuff can one person
He's
have?
a hoarder. He was obviously a hoarder.
He was.
Yeah.
Sadly,
Either
there were no
that-
Super Bowl trophies for sale.
See, that's uncalled for.
You knew I was going to go
Yeah,
there.
you had to go
And he
there.
was
What
trying
if
to
he
sell
shops
our
at other
KFAN
people's-
stuff.
Yeah.
What if he shops at other garage sales and then brings it to his house?
Well,
That happens a lot.
The thing
I don't know.
I'm kind of amused by is the prices seem a little inflated on some stuff that you say just because it was in Bud's house. This goofy lamp.
The plunger? You're talking about the
it's
plunger?
worth
Middle
it,
bucket,
doesn't seem
$200.
Yeah.
Next up, he was very memorable storytellers on television. Maury Safer died 60 Minutes. He just retired last week. Dan?
Morley Safer was, you could almost say, the underrated part who didn't get, because he wasn't as bombastic as Mike Wallace, didn't get quite maybe the same steam, but was a great storyteller. It's absolutely true. And if you go back even further, he did remarkable, his reporting on the Vietnam War was part of what really changed the perspective of people like Walter Cronkite and Americans on that war, because he did the dirty work. He just wasn't, like I said, he didn't seem to have the same juice, but he was damn good at what he did. Big loss.
Okay, Justin, George Zimmerman's gun, we think, sold online for $138,000. Unclear if it really went for that, but seriously?
That's my reaction as well. I've seen from when this story started that this gun is going to be auctioned off. Seriously is what you say. I don't know what else there is to say. First of all, who wants it? And then
There's always some wacko.
But how does that
who
person
wants
have that much money?
Yeah.
I understand they should be shopping. People that crazy should be at Bud Grant's garage sale. Those are the prices, $130,000, and now he might be taunting the parents with it and stuff.
That's true.
It's
but
ridiculous.
I mean, people who buy that kind of stuff, they're bored apparently, and they got nothing but money, and I guess they think they're going to show it off. I don't know what it is.
Okay, let's go.
Crazy.
Rio 2016 Summer Olympics in August. Anti-doping officials are already retesting some old samples, urine samples from previous Olympics, and found that many were doping. More proof we can't keep up with cheaters, Dan.
No, it is more proof, and I've told this story many times on the radio that I have a guy who did Olympic doctor work who said it's all a beard. We do all this testing. We can't keep up with them. We're basically 3 steps behind them. They've got stuff they invented that we didn't even know exists.
Right.
And that's sadly the game that we're playing here. So to a certain extent, I don't think there's any way out of that box. You fight the best fight, but this is the reality.
People are going to test positive this year just because of the water in Rio.
Yeah, well,
they might not even
it's
be
true.
doping. It's just
Yeah.
going to be the health conditions
And
down
finally,
there, sadly.
one of the best stories of the week, a Minnesota couple making national headlines. They had their romantic engagement photos taken at, Costco in St. Louis Park. Look at that. They look so happy.
That's magical.
They look so relaxed. I do not look like that. I rip through it with a cart while people take their good old time getting samples. Dan, Justin, go.
It ain't gonna last more than 2 years.
You don't think so?
No, it's there's no chance.
I like the idea of Costco. You buy
You
it.
like why are people so excited by this?
Because
it's Costco
it's
as
different.
opposed to.
Because it's not a meadow.
How about we
it's
just
not
go-
a creek.
It's
not a
just
tree.
Get engaged and
No,
not turn it
that's
into
sadly
the
what you.
story of the century about me.
No,
and
that's what it is now, and they're all going to be on social
just
media.
Have your big moment and keep it to yourselves, and we don't need to. What do we care?
I agree with you there.
We're happy
but
for
that's
them.
not how
They're
that's not how the
engaged.
people do it.
No.
Problem is they had to buy 5,000 pictures because it's Costco and it's wholesale. You can't
that's
just buy
probably true.
you can't just buy one roll. You got to buy 5,000.
Let's follow. Are we going to follow this? My guess is Fox 9 will be.